These teachings of the Living Light philosophy were given through the mediumship of Mr. Richard P. Goodwin. Spiritual Awareness Class, CC7.
This evening on our questions and answers, and we're going to start with group 6 because they haven't had a chance to start first. Group 6, would you like to start the questions this evening?
Well, I did have a question. I marked it in on the discourse. I can think of that. I know what it is. I'd like your explanation. It says, please do not look for names or tags. They bind you to the dream of creation, and that's what we're striving to outgrow.
Absolutely. Would you like an expansion on that?
I would.
Yes, the discourse says, please do not ask for names, because they are tags which bind us to a creation. For example, if you started entertaining in thought what you did when you were 5 years old, and your friends, your associates, what you would be doing in truth is going backwards into an experience that has already passed. You will get no benefit from it. You've already grown through it. And so when we leave this physical clay, we go on to other dimensions. The very first thing that we lose as we evolve into the spiritual realms of light is our last name. This is why it is so difficult for mediums to get full names of people from the world of spirit, because depending upon what level the medium is contacting depends on whether or not you can get full names. Now, those entities who are still closest to the earth realm can give their first, middle, and last names, their full names. But those who have evolved to the higher realms of light, they retain their first name. That is the name that they are known by. Their last name is something that they inherited. As they go onward, yea, even into higher realms in the world of spirit, they're known then by a symbol. Now that symbol is given to them under the laws of merit. They merit the symbol that they're known by. And so it is as you evolve in these other dimensions. They don't want to be held by these name tags. Does that help with your question?
It does indeed. And these reverends lose that's just a creative thing, isn't it?
That's just a creative thing. They lose all those titles as they evolve. The closer you stick to the earth realm after passing, you have all the earth's memories and all of its attachments. But you must realize, friends, that when we go on to other dimensions, there are broader horizons. There are times that the spirits do come to contact the earth realm. There are certain reasons for that. They have come because they're here to help others to awaken. That's the reason some of them return. The reasons that others return is because of emotional attachment. And then there are other reasons why they return to the earth realm.
Adding to that, it's still the same question actually. We have a life and death doctor, as we know, one who is with us through our life here. And he gives a name as Dr. so-and-so Smith, Johnson or so. Well, that doesn't mean that he is still on the first levels of awareness, does it?
No, I wouldn't say so. But we must realize that most entities who hover close to the earth realm have the best recollection of their last name. Now, remember that there are many realms of the astral. There are the close dark realms to the earth realm. There are the higher astral realms. Then there are the summerland, what the spiritualists call the summerland, the beginnings of the areas of light, where they still have their names. Yes. That doesn't mean because you happen to know a person that's communicating, that's given you a full name, that they're earthbound or that they're in the astral realm. I did not mean to imply that at all. But you must realize, if it is an awakened spirit, which is a guide, then they're bringing that name for a reason. Some channels need a full name. Some guides recognize that and will accommodate their channel in order to get the work accomplished. Does that help with your question?
It does.
Yes. Anyone else in group 6? Yes, had her hand up.
I have two questions. One is, how can we tell which part of our anatomy corresponds with which soul function?
Now that is an excellent question. And the question is asked, how can we tell which part of our anatomy corresponds with a soul faculty or a sense function? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know that like the heel is understanding.
Yes.
But other than that,
the heel is the door to understanding. Now, if you will study the textbook that you have, you will begin to perceive which parts of your anatomy correspond to certain functions and faculties. Once having understood what is already given in the book, you will be able to perceive the other parts of the anatomy. If you are not, I will be happy to answer to the best of my ability.
okay. I have another question.
Yes.
I suspect I've been through the book more than once, and I don't know if I keep missing this or what, but both in Discourse 19, or maybe I'm confusing a very basic thing, and in Discourse 34, the book mentions mantras that have been given to us. Is this mantra the peace, the meditation of peace, or is that something separate from that?
The mantra that was given to a few of my students, that is something separate, yes. Yes, it is. You had a question.
I did. I have a couple of questions. One of them relating to this week's discourse, and another one relating to some time ago when I was asked to spend 3 hours meditating on a subject, a certain portion.
Yes.
I think that I have accumulated 3 hours meditation on that particular passage.
Wonderful.
However, I would like to ask the first question regarding this discourse.
Yes.
And this is, won't you learn to be the observer and not the observed? Well, it seems that doesn't seem to follow with bearing the light. The torch bearer is never the observer, he's the observed. And how does the two, sharing the light with others, relate to being an observer?
Because the light is ever known by the light. And so if a person, when he says there, learn to be the observer and not the observed, I understand that statement to mean to first look, think, and listen before acting. So many people act. They think they act, and what they really are doing is reacting. So what he is trying to say is, learn to be the observer and not the observed. The observed are those who are constantly reacting, but those who are truly acting, those in truth are the observers. Do you understand?
Yes, I think so.
So, for example, if you sit here and you just observe, there are so many things going on in this room at this instant. instead of reacting to all of the emotions, the impulses, the thoughts, and etc., sit back and observe all of this taking place. What is it that happens in students' unfoldment? All of a sudden they see something and they react, and when they react, the thing that they see disappears. Well, it hasn't disappeared. What the individual student has done is they have reacted to what they saw, and in reacting they have lowered their level of awareness and consequently can no longer see the spiritual vision. Do you understand?
Yes, I think so, yes.
So if we're wise, we'll be the patient, peaceful observer with a heart of gratitude for that we are able to observe, weigh it out in our mind, and then act. Now, in reference to the discourse that you were to spend 3 hours on, what did you come up as your understanding? And what is the discourse number?
Discourse number is 45, and it's of course in the last paragraph of 45. It's on page 124. If a man is born without feet to walk, or hands to write, or ears to hear, or eyes to see, nostrils to smell, or mouth to speak, a tongue to taste, what would be the purpose of his being?
Indeed, what would be the purpose of his being? Have you read the rest of that discourse? The answer is, read the discourse from the beginning. The answer is there.
All right. Greetings, fellow students. We are discussing at this time reasons for the delay, the procrastination, and the seeming difficulties as we strive to find the light of truth. Why is it that so many take so long to make changes in established patterns that have proven themselves to be detrimental and not in their best interests spiritually?
There's the answer. Go ahead.
Why is it such a seeming struggle? Why is it that man speaks forth his desires to do and to be and become so very lazy, so to speak, in application? Then of what benefit is any teaching at any time? Think, my children, on what level do we find ourselves grounded? And if so, why do we remain there?
Of what benefit is it to a human soul to garner up knowledge and awareness if the soul is not willing, ready, and able to demonstrate it, to apply it? Of what benefit is it?
Yes. Well, that isn't the answer I got. My answer is not right.
Perhaps it is for the level that you're expressing. Please express it.
Well, it seemed to me to be the duty of the person born to manifest the Spirit within with whatever handicap that they have merited.
Absolutely. That is also an answer. Definitely and positively.
By the law of...
By the law of merit.
Right, yes.
That is also an answer. That is another level of awareness. And it all applies. Absolutely. Thank you very much. You see, students, what does it behoove us to bother, to study, to take classes, or anything else, if in our study we do not make application? If you study this book over and over and over again, and it has many, many teachings, much more than what the surface of the little book seems to show, but if you do not apply it, it will be of no benefit to you. They give an exercise in here. It's called the fountain exercise. He gives many exercises in this book. What is this fountain exercise? If we study the book, we're going to find out what it is. We look over there, and I happen to see a fountain. It happens to be a little bit green and a little tan or beige. All right. Now, what does that mean to me? Why is it those two colors? Well, it's very simple. It just happens to be the level of awareness I happen to be on at this moment. That's what the fountain exercise really is. My good friends, it's yourself. That's where you are. Now, isn't that of great benefit if you do something about it? But if you don't do anything about it, you know, I say here, well, fine, Richard, that means there's a little mental and a little soul mixed up there, because I understand the colors that have been given, don't you see? But what good does it do? You might as well go home and watch television. If we don't apply what we're receiving, use it every day of every moment. I try to apply it myself. When we recognize, friends, that the first step that we have to walk through in awakening spiritually is what is known as the emotional realm. And I assure you, it's a mighty difficult step to make, because we all got emotions. You know, we just don't say, oops, I've gone through the emotional realm, it's all over now. Well, if it works that way, I want the pill or the key, because I haven't found it that way yet. In the course of any moment, something can trigger our emotional realm. How can you grow through something and stay through it that you're a part of? And we're in this thing. We're in it. And we never know when it's going to get triggered. So let's face the truth about the matter. There are ways to help keep us on guard by staying aware of our thinking, by becoming aware of ourselves. Our inner being will say, whoops, don't walk over there, because you're not strong enough yet. You'll dip right down into that level. That's the way that we can protect ourselves. There's an inner feeling. There's an inner knowing. And when we do have an experience, let's just pause and say to ourselves, fascinating experience I'm having. Be objective and ask yourself, now what did I do to set this law into motion? We're not going to be free until we're willing to accept the truth that nothing, but nothing happens to us that is not caused by us. You can't be free, friends, as long as the old ego is permitted to insist that it's somebody's fault over there. You'll never be free, and neither will I, until we go in and say, okay, I set these laws into motion, this is the experience that I am having, and I'm going to do something about it. Then we're going to start on the path of freedom. Group 6, any more questions? Yes?
With the soul faculties and the sense functions, I'm back on that again.
Yes.
Is it reasonable to think that at some point or in some state or some condition of the individual spiritual growth that the faculties might overcome or replace or cause to dissipate or spiritualize the functions, the sense functions? Is that reasonable?
Well, in reference to your question, is there a time in spiritual awareness or spiritual growth that the faculties overbalance the sense functions? Yes. Yes, indeed, there are that time for some people. It is not beneficial for that to happen while yet in the physical flesh. It is not beneficial, has not proven to be beneficial. Now, as we evolve, remember this. As long as we have mind, we have form. And as long as we have individualized soul, we have form. So it is that the teaching is not to annihilate the functions. After all, we want to stay in form so we can serve the purpose of our soul's incarnation into form. Now, when we evolve out of form, it is only in form that we have self-awareness. When we go out of form, we're out of self-awareness. We're no longer aware. And so, what is it that keeps us in form? It's the functions. The functions of the form. Is that understandable? You see what happens.
Think about it some more.
Yes. Now you see what happens with these people who go off into the soul faculties or off all into the spiritual. You find them walking around like, I think they call that state catatonic, like zombies. You see, they're no longer able to function in a world of form. And consequently, that is not the teachings of the living life. The teachings are to bring a balance between your functions and your soul faculties. Don't annihilate them. It will not be beneficial for your soul's expression.
Excuse me, I wasn't thinking of annihilating them. I was thinking of I guess I'll say it, spiritualizing them so that they don't appear. I was thinking, for instance...
Oh, they can be spiritualized as long as they're still used. How does one spiritualize the function? I can tell you. By not being attached to the function, that's how you spiritualize it. Now, let's take an example. Say that a person has a function of desire known as eating. Let's face the facts, it is a function. Now, when the desire to have something to eat is at its strongest, and we are able to speak to the desire and not eat for maybe 3 hours later, have no emotional reaction whatsoever, then we have spiritualized that particular function. That is most beneficial. You see, there's nothing wrong with desire until desire takes control of our soul. If, for example, we have a desire and we become a nervous wreck until that desire is fulfilled, we're not able to wait 5 minutes or 5 hours or anything, then we have lost control, and creation is now our master, and our soul is its slave. That's the teachings of the living light.
This is what I was considering, and also, for instance, suspicion can be replaced, by the force of love. This is what I was speaking to. There are occasions or conditions in a person's life or a situation in which they're involved when, for instance, suspicion, it doesn't appear because something else is there instead.
But remember,
Is that faculties and functions?
remember, there's not a thing wrong with suspicion until suspicion takes control of our soul. You see, that's where we're treading in deep water. When creation takes control of our soul, then we've lost the true purpose of our incarnation.
See, I'll have to think about that some more.
All right.
Just one more.
Certainly.
Would you please compare logic and reason?
I'll be most happy to share with you my understanding. It is logical. Logic says that 2 and 2 is 4. That's logical. Reason, let me put it another way. Reason has a certain element that logic cannot have. Reason has total consideration. Logic does not have. Yes.
Well, getting back to the functions, does selfishness ever become completely selfless service, or do we keep this function of selfishness? We have to be selfish to preserve sometimes, not the ego, but the body and the mind, because other people will just completely take over. So the function is selfishness. Is the polarity selfless service? I don't know, mixed up on this.
All right, I'll be happy to share with you our understanding. Self-preservation is the first law of form. The first law of form. Now, without self-preservation, there is no continuity of the species. Therefore, a person could say that everyone is selfish as long as they're in form. Well, of course we are. The teaching is to balance that with selflessness, with a universality, with a broadening of our thinking. In other words, with reason, which is total consideration. And this is why the teaching is, keep faith with reason, for she will transfigure thee. What is it that reason has that transfigures us? Why, my good friends, it has total consideration. It's all encompassing. It leaves nothing out. Does that help with your question?
Very much, thank you.
I never met a person that wasn't selfish. I have met many people that are balanced with selfishness and selflessness. My goodness, if I wasn't selfish myself, I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you. Because that's what helps keep me in the form, is that self-attachment. Haven't you ever seen a person having a great difficulty in getting out of the form? They're so self-attached, they're overbalanced in the self-attachment, and they can't leave the piece of clay. It's a matter of balance and counterbalance. Does that help?
Very much.
Now let's move to Group 7, please. Does Group 7 have any questions tonight? Yes?
I think I do. I was working with the same discourse that was, apparently. And when it came to that mantra, now I could understand that your class at that time had been given a mantra of a different sort. But the way that that was worded, it seemed to me that since a part of the teaching is to learn your own aura, to know your color of your aura, and I felt, and I used the fountain exercise by projecting the color I thought was necessary to my aura. So I do think that could be your mantra, would be the color that's suitable to your aura.
If you had one word to speak, what would you speak? That's your mantra for your level at that moment.
For that particular time, at that particular meeting. Then I had an interesting thing. I made a statement today that I would never call a spirit, because in spiritual communication, I would never call a particular spirit. And sometimes in my own meditation, while I'm not concerned about the names of my guides or teachers, it isn't important to me, at this point. However, I wouldn't even call on my teacher, Juniper. So tonight, when I was just kind of spaced out while you were talking, I drew a juniper tree and had me write mantra on it. So I took it to mean that if I chose to use it as a mantra for instruction, he was quite willing to be called.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that with the class. Anyone else in Group 7? Let's move to Group 5, please. Thank you. Anyone in Group 5? No questions in Group 5. Yes?
I would like a little more on what was said a moment ago regarding spiritualizing functions. That I think so many people are afraid to let go of attachments. Because they say, if I let go of that, what have I got? I don't have, that's all I have, you know.
Yes.
Attachment. And so if I let go, I haven't got anything. Well, I think that's where the faith comes in, that you're right, there won't be anything unless you believe that there will be something, unless you become aware that the transition can be made, that where a function is balanced with the faculty, that the function will take on a new light when the attachment is released.
Absolutely and positively. Remember, as long as we shelter anything, the longer we shelter it, the more we make it a cripple. And that's why he teaches, blessings are ever to be shared and never to be sheltered. You see, the longer you hold to anything, that becomes your master, and you become its slave, no matter what attachment you may have. The longer you express the attachment. This is why he teaches, when you have desire, which is function, educate the desire, which is to spiritualize the desire. And how do you spiritualize a desire? By keeping the desire in the awareness that it is not master, it is a servant, a tool to be used, not to be abused. So you see, all things in God are good. In balance is all that it is. Does that help, Bud?
Thank you.
Yes. Now let's move to group 4. Do you have any questions?
No question.
No questions tonight. All right. Group 2, please.
Regarding one of the questions from another group about self-preservation, is it not possible, too, that as we realize that we're going to go on, I mean, if the only thing that is really self-preserving is ego, and that what is ego after all? I don't know if I'm making sense, but to realize that the ego, I mean, that you really don't need this big ego, and you really don't need the self-preservation, that you're going to go on and you're still the same person, perhaps even better, hopefully. But is that possible?
Yes, but remember that self-preservation is the law of form. Now, for example, if a person in the course of a day did not demonstrate self-preservation, I can give you an example for myself. If I did nothing more in the course of a day than return every phone call that I received, and I spent as much time on the phone call as the person desired me to spend, there would not be enough hours in the day and night. Therefore, self-preservation dictates, through reason, that I must use a limited amount of time on returning the phone calls that I have to return. Now, you see, God doesn't come in and dictate that to me, but reason does. What is it that prompts reason? Self-preservation. Is that understandable?
Yes.
So therefore, we do have this law of self-preservation. Now, for example, we could sit here this evening and say, fine, I find it all interesting, I'll just keep right on going. And we might not get out till midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning. So, however, several students, having their reason triggered by self-preservation or self-interest, you understand, some people got to get up and go to work in the morning, they would say, I think it's time that we quit. So you see, we do not express in form without self-preservation, and self-preservation serves its purpose. But when self-preservation goes out of bounds or out of balance, you understand, then we've got problems. Then we have what's known as greed and selfishness. Is that understandable?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Yes, I'll be right with you. Had a question on group 2.
In Discourse 30, the statement is made, there are so many explanations and beliefs concerning from what part of the physical anatomy the soul leaves its ethereal body or spirit. And the question I'd like to answer says, we are aware of the center of anatomy of air, and I would logically say that would have to do with the lungs, but I'd like to know reasonably which part of the anatomy that is in the...
You want to know which part of the anatomy the soul leaves at transition? I can tell you from my personal experiences what part I see it leaving from. I have repeatedly seen the spirit leave the so-called physical body upon transition from what is known as the soft spot in the head. Now, I am aware that some mediums have seen otherwise. Well, of course, that's their right. I might be seeing a little cross-eyed myself, but that's where I have repeatedly seen the soul or spirit leave the physical anatomy, through the soft spot in the head.
Could you tell us, please, where the center of the anatomy is for the air?
The air center?
Yes.
The throat.
Thank you.
The throat. It's also where resentment is located as a function. Yes, it is interesting. You've had a class study for 20-some years.
Well, what I was trying to say is that...
Why is resentment in the air circle?
Oh, resentment in the mental, the air is the mental center, isn't it?
That's right.
But isn't it true that every illness we have, like when we have a lot of cold, there is also the lungs have a certain reason for being ill, and earaches mean another thing, and
definitely and positively. Every single what disease is out of ease or out of harmony, and therefore the part of the anatomy that is affected is revealing to you which part is out of harmony. That's why he teaches you the parts of the anatomy. Yes. So if you have a certain condition and it's a certain part of your anatomy, through study and application, you can find out the cause. And once you find the cause, you have the cure. This is why medicine is not as successful as it could be, because they're working on the effect. They're not working on the cause. They're working on the effect. Yes. You know, it's most interesting. They say, well, what is it? They call it the Asian flu or London flu. They always call it something. And every year it goes around. Well, you know, what exists in one exists in everyone. The potential is ever there. But I always notice, you see, it's the throats that are attacked every year. And for many years I've asked her why. And then the day came when I was given the teaching what the throat meant in the air circle. It means resentment. And you know, it is true. You look around at this world of creation, there's sure a lot of resentment in the world to something. We either resent the Internal Revenue Service because it wants to collect money from us that we owe it anyway, or we resent something else. You know, resentment's a resentment. No wonder there's so much London flu. I don't know why they want to blame London. Any other questions? Yes, please.
The first one was when you were talking about reading, I was thinking with reading be a key to meditation. I just sort of thought that. I just didn't know if it.
Absolutely and positively, it is a key to meditation.
Okay, and the other thing is what you were just talking about. And you said that someone's throat sick or ailment would be resentment. And you say, and then you say the reason is because, you know, you say there's a lot of resentment in this world. But then, just looking at it that way, I could say that the reason why I have a sore throat.
I didn't say that the reason a person had a sore throat is because of a lot of resentment in the world, and I didn't mean to imply that.
You said it was given to you, right?
I said that the understanding of the throat and anything that affects the area of the throat was caused from resentment, yes. And it is reasonable to me because of years of demonstration, personal demonstration. I had the flu every single year, and it affected my throat for many, many years. Finally, I grew out of my resentment, and I have not had an effect to my throat since.
Well, how about other minor things, or that, like you say, that if you have an earache, that means something. Are you saying that the only way you can find out what an earache, what would it mean, would be through giving it some understanding?
No, the parts of the anatomy are given in the teachings, and they are demonstrable. That's one thing they are. They can be put to the test personally, and they will prove themselves to the individual who studies and applies them. Absolutely. There is no teaching in that book that is not personally demonstrable through effort, study, and application. And the wisdom of patience.
Okay.
Does that help with your question?
Sort of, kind of. I just have to think about it.
Certainly, absolutely. Remember, friends, it is not fair to ourselves to expect to understand a lifetime study in 2 or 3 or 6 or 5 months. It is not fair to ourselves. If you can perceive 1 or 2 things from it through study and application, then we're doing very, very well. We must not expect to learn all about life in a given month or 2. It is not just, and it is not reasonable. Many people have studied the laws of communication for a lifetime, and they're still working at it. You see, there is nothing in this world that we can ever get in its fullness. Nothing. We may think we can, but we don't. Only a fool reaches his goal. Because when you reach a goal, you have nothing left to look forward to but the fear of keeping it. So only a fool reaches his goal. Look at the fools that retire. Excuse me. Take a look. The moment they retire to their grave. Because they no longer have no interest usually. And so life no longer has no purpose, and life no longer has no meaning. You see, the goal is there, up there. You ever keep working towards it, but you never quite known as progression. Progression of the form. Remember, it's the form that changes and progresses. It's not the formless. No, it's only the form that does that. You remember, friends, God can't grow. If God could grow, then God wouldn't be God, would it? Yes.
Form. We think so much of form as being the form we're in now, but I think that many people, and I know that it took me a long time to understand that even spirit isn't form.
Absolutely.
There's always form. It's spiritual form. But we go from the physical form to spiritual form, so we're never without form.
There is always form as long as there is awareness. When you enter the formless, there's unawareness. There is no awareness without form. It is the form that is aware. Absolutely and positively. The formless is not awareness. Awareness, my good friends, comes with duality. And duality only exists in form. It doesn't exist in the formless, in the divine. Does that help with your question?
It's so great I can't tell you.
Thank you. Now, I had a question.
I kind of lost it.
Did you lose it in the formlessness?
I think so.
All right, now it's almost time. Yes, I had a question.
Yeah.
Would you rise, please?
And then what is meant then by I'm spirit, formless, and free?
Absolutely. And it's an excellent question that's on all our church programs and in our newspaper ad. I am spirit, formless and free. Stop. Whatever I think, form, that will I be. Thought is the keynote. And the moment you think, you guarantee creation, you guarantee duality. And this is why he teaches guard your thoughts, the portal to your soul. I am spirit, formless and free. Whatever I think, that will I be. So we are the effect of what we have thought. We will continue to be the effect of what we entertain in thought, whether we like it or not. We have brown eyes or blue eyes. My good friends, that is the effect of what you set into motion prior to this earth incarnation somewhere on the ladder of eternal progression. And consequently, your little soul is in a body with blue eyes, and mine's in a body with brown eyes. Only the effect of thought. Yes?
You were saying that if you had a goal and if you got to, okay, you made it to your goal, you're saying only a fool reaches his goal. But yet, wouldn't it be like, okay, you strive for a goal and you do reach your goal, but yet then you acknowledge that you have reached this goal, therefore setting up something farther to reach for. Again, starting the whole process all over again. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand wholeheartedly what you're saying. Yes, thank you.
But that is not being a fool then, doing it that way. True?
If a person has a goal and reaches their goal, tell me something. Does man ever reach his goal?
I have.
You have reached your goal?
I have reached some of my goals.
You have reached some of your goals. When you reached the goal, did you find that it was not full, whole, and complete, and you had to start something else?
No, I reached it as something on the way to the next goal, like you say. Well,
then that's a part goal.
Okay, that's what I mean then.
It never ends, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I'm saying from one thing leads to the next. From one goal leads to the next goal.
If your goal is nothing more than a chain reaction, which is continuous, that then brings us to the light in time. But if our goal is something that we can complete here and now, and then we say, there it is, I've got it. Only a fool has that kind of goal. Because it causes stagnation, contrary to progression.
Like you're saying that if they reach the goal and they say, like you said, there it is, I've got it, and now there's nothing more.
There's nothing more for them to do.
That then.
Then it's a fool that reaches a goal. Yes. Has a question, please.
Yes, since I have a condition like goals now.
Oh, do you have a condition? Don't take it personal, they all have. I had it for years.
If I was honest with myself, which is what, to find what causes the resentment, Now, how do I go along if I know what caused it? If I know what my perception is, how do I go on with that?
The moment the person finds the cause, the cure is manifested. The moment the mind searches into its inner self, finding the cause of the resentment, at that moment, the cure is made manifest.
Now, Richard, now if I know, well, I have an idea. If I'm not strong enough with myself, I really don't know how to work it out.
In other words, what you're trying to say is if a person has resentment, and they're aware that they have it, and but they're not able to get rid of it. Well, you see, you know, it's human to forgive and it's divine to forget. So one must consider working on forgiveness. And when we truly forgive the individual, do you understand?
Well, I try.
You try to understand or you try to forgive?
Well, I try both.
You try both. Very wise, student. Very wise. I'm sure that will disappear within the coming 5 to 6 days maximum, because you're working on your forgiveness. Now, we mustn't take these things personally. We mustn't look at a person and say, whoops, look at all that resentment. Oh, we got laryngitis. Oh, I almost got it myself. Because then we're becoming judges, you know. It's just like a person looking at somebody's car and finding out the fender's all dented in, and they say, wow, I wonder what transgression, what laws they transgressed. Well, I'd be careful with that kind of thinking, because it might just bounce right back and you might have your whole rear end smashed. Yes, are there any other questions before we finish class? Yes?
Now, with any influence on our physical body, now, I know there are more parts that, you know, you've got ear or other parts. Now, well, I know it has not been given. What the meaning is, like we know, resentment is the truth now.
Yes?
You would have to go on just the same way, like you just explained it before get another area.
Yes, to forgive is to free. When we forgive, we free from the bondage of mind, and in that freedom, we are relieved from the so-called discords in our own being. Forgiveness is the greatest blessing because it is freedom. It frees us. To forgive is to free. Absolutely. Yes, has a question.
Is this not only forgiveness that we forgive others, but we also forgive ourselves?
We must first forgive ourselves before we can forgive another. If we don't forgive ourselves first, then we cannot forgive another human soul. It is impossible and contradictory. Yes?
So, what it really is, to my understanding, as soon as we get an illness or, you know, get
a discord.
The whole other thing to know that's why it affected us.
We stayed in the level long enough to be receptive and manifested, absolutely, somewhere along the line. You know, I have to be careful with his teachings, because then they look at me and say, they're just waiting, you know, for me to get sick. I know, I'm well aware, I can't afford to get sick. No matter how bad I feel or how many hours I have to work, I have to stay in perfect health. You understand? I have a whole multitude of people telling me if anything happens. I had a flat tire the other night and they wanted to know what law I transgressed. Well, of course the tires on an automobile, that's what moves it. It's the feet. And my understanding wasn't up to par. I would have listened to the Spirit 2 weeks ago when they said, get the tire changed. Well, now I spent $28.95 and I got them both changed. You see. So you have to be, it isn't easy being a teacher because you're constantly behind the 8 ball, Yes. People say, well, what's the matter with him? He's going away to get sick? Well, friends, our time is up. Let's go have coffee. Thank you all very much.